The year was 1980, a time when the Cold War was at its height, and nations across Europe were preparing for the possibility of large-scale conflict. England, as part of NATO, faced the constant pressure of ensuring its military strength was ready to meet any challenge. Among the most important elements of that preparation was the development and deployment of advanced military tanks, which symbolized both technological progress and raw battlefield power. The British Army had long been recognized for its expertise in armored warfare, and the tanks of the 1980s reflected decades of lessons learned from World War II, as well as adaptations to modern threats posed by the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact. One of the most iconic tanks from England during this era was the Chieftain main battle tank, a machine that defined British armoured forces throughout the late 1960s and into the 1980s. By 1980, the Chieftain had already gained a reputation as one of the most formidable tanks in NATO's arsenal, boasting a powerful gun and strong armour protection. Its design philosophy was simple but effective: prioritize firepower and survivability over mobility. The British military believed that if war were to break out in Europe, their tanks would have to hold defensive lines and engage Soviet armour from long distances. At the heart of the Chieftain was its 120mm L11A5 rifled gun, a weapon that gave it a significant advantage over many tanks of its time. This gun was capable of firing armor-piercing fin-stabilized rounds, as well as high-explosive shells, making it effective against both heavily armored enemy tanks and softer targets. What truly set it apart, however, was its accuracy. Even in the 1980s, Chieftain crews were known for their ability to engage and destroy targets at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers with precision. For NATO, this was a critical asset, since Warsaw Pact strategy emphasized overwhelming numbers of Soviet T-62 and T-72 tanks. Armor protection on the Chieftain was also a key strength. The tank's frontal armor was angled and thick, designed to resist the most advanced anti-tank weapons of the time. Crews felt a sense of confidence inside the vehicle, knowing that they had one of the best protected tanks on the battlefield. However, this came with a cost of mobility. The Chieftain's engine, a multi-fuel design producing around 750 horsepower, often struggled to move the nearly 55-ton vehicle effectively. British crews sometimes joked that the Chieftain could outgun anything, but it couldn't outrun anything. Despite this limitation, the British Army accepted the trade-off, confident that defensive firepower would matter more than speed in the European theatre. By 1980, England was already preparing the next generation of tanks. Enter the Challenger 1, which would eventually replace the Chieftain during the decade. The Challenger 1 built on the lessons of its predecessor but introduced new levels of protection through the use of Chobham armor, a revolutionary composite armor technology developed in Britain. This armor was a closely guarded secret, but it gave the Challenger a reputation as one of the toughest tanks in the world. While the Challenger was not fully introduced until 1983, by 1980, its development was already shaping the future of Britain's armoured forces. The presence of these tanks in the British Army was more than just a military necessity. They were symbols of national strength, reassurance to allies, and a clear warning to adversaries. The Cold War was not only fought through diplomacy and espionage but also through visible demonstrations of military might. A column of British Chieftain tanks rolling across training grounds in Germany was a powerful message to any who doubted NATO's resolve. Training played a vital role in maximizing the effectiveness of these machines. British crews spent countless hours in exercises such as the famous exercise Lionheart and Reforger maneuvers, working alongside American, German, and other NATO forces. These drills tested their ability to move, fight, and survive in simulated battle conditions. Crews learned to coordinate with infantry, artillery, and air support, recognizing that tanks alone could not win wars. Instead, tanks were the backbone of combined arms operations, delivering shock power and resilience in the heart of battle. Life inside a British tank during 1980 was challenging but also filled with pride. Crews typically consisted of 4 members: the commander, gunner, loader, and driver. Each had a vital role, and teamwork was essential. The cramped interior demanded discipline and efficiency, with every movement carefully practiced to shave seconds off reload times or targeting adjustments. Tank crews often developed strong bonds, as their survival depended on mutual trust and cooperation. The international context cannot be ignored. The Soviet Union's armored divisions represented a real and immediate threat. With thousands of tanks stationed just across the Iron Curtain, NATO planners knew that if conflict erupted, Britain's tanks would be among the first to fight. The chieftain's role was not only to fight but to deter. The very existence of such powerful armored forces helped prevent war, convincing the Warsaw Pact that any attempt at invasion would come at a tremendous cost. Beyond the battlefield, British tank design also influenced global armored warfare. Countries like Iran purchased chieftains during the 1970s, and by 1980, these export models were seeing combat in the Iran-Iraq War. This gave the world a chance to witness the chieftain's capabilities in real conflict. While results were mixed due to operational challenges, the tank's firepower and protection were undeniable. The 1980s marked a turning point in military technology worldwide. Advances in anti-tank guided missiles, attack helicopters, and precision weapons challenged the dominance of heavy armor. Yet, despite these changes, tanks like the Chieftain and the emerging Challenger 1 proved that armored vehicles still had a critical role to play. Their combination of protection, firepower, and psychological presence remained unmatched. Looking back, the story of England's military tanks in 1980 is not just about machines of war. It's about strategy, deterrence, and the men who operated them. It is about a nation's determination to stand strong in the face of uncertainty, to invest in technology that could hold the line if the unthinkable happened. For England, the tanks of 1980 were more than steel and firepower, they were guardians of peace in an era defined by tension and rivalry. And as history has shown, the legacy of those machines continues today. The lessons learned from the Chieftain shaped the Challenger 1, which in turn influenced the Challenger 2, a tank that remains in service with the British Army. Each generation carries forward the spirit of those Cold War warriors, ensuring that England's armoured might remains ready for whatever challenges the future may bring.